Here it is, the Fantastic Four issue 1. This was released August 8th, 1961, and on racks until about November 1961. This kicked off the entire Marvel universe, and this was so successful, and its mood and tone reached out to all of the other Marvel mags at the time and influenced them, but this is the one that started it all. This is written by Stan Lee and of course penciled by Jack Kirby. And here they are, Reed Richards, Ben Grimm, Sue Storm, and Johnny Storm. Of course, there's always been controversy as to who created the Fantastic Four and really who wrote the Fantastic Four. Jack Kirby stayed on until about issue 102. He had some plot layouts that they used for issues up to about 108. Part of the controversy is that Jack Kirby himself would, of course, plot all this out due to the Marvel method. He would basically draw the entire comic, put in some story notes in the sidelines, sometimes write a bit of dialogue, and then Stan Lee would fill in all these word balloons. But if you're plotting the entire thing, are you not writing the entire thing? And the Challengers of the Unknown had some similarities to Fantastic Four, but that's a story for another time. I hope to do Challengers of the Unknown 1 to 8, which I think were the ones that Jack Kirby had done. But here you see the Thing, escaping and running amok in the city. But he's really a good guy, and of course, here is Johnny Storm. Johnny Storm gets a signal from Reed Richards and flames on and ruins this truck that he was working on and flies off. And something's happening. There's an attack on the city. There's a missile coming, and Johnny Storm comes to save the day. But then Reed Richards captures the missile with his stretching ability and throws it into the ocean. And here you see Johnny Storm lost his fire ability, and then Reed Richards captures him. And the Fantastic Four are all summoned here. And before we begin the adventure, they're going to get into the origin. So the origin is that they go off into space, and while they're in space, cosmic rays hit them. So when they crash, of course, Sue Storm becomes the Invisible Woman. The other characters get their abilities. Of course, Ben Grimm becomes the Thing. And the Thing looked different in the early days. There's a lot of different iterations of the character. This one looks like Michael Chiklis a lot, but he's very oatmeal looking. And here comes Johnny Storm flaming on. He has to learn to control his fire. And then they name themselves, because this is a comic book of the 1960s, and they become the Fantastic Four. This is like a big panel to show off what's going to happen in the rest of the comic. And there's a giant sinkhole or something that they have to investigate. Fantastic Four were more of a scientific investigation team than superheroes, but that's what makes them unique, in that they would go after weird phenomenon and stuff. And the phenomenon would basically be tied to some sort of villain. And here's the big creature from the cover of the comic. And we'll find out eventually that this thing is summoned by something called the Mole Man. In many ways, Fantastic Four was a continuation of the monster comics that Marvel Comics was putting out. They put out horror comics, but most of the horror comics were these giant monster stories. And so when they went off into this direction of making superheroes, it was still a continuation of that track, because there was still an audience for that. And so they would squeeze in these giant monsters and stuff, as a continuation of that whole genre that was successful for them for a bit. So here's Thing fighting a rock monster. And here's the Mole Man, and he's like a one-armed slave of humanity, blah blah blah, same old thing as most villains from this time. And his origin is that he was ugly and people didn't like him, so he went to the the Arctic and saw some sort of cave. He went into the cave and discovered all these different people that lived underground in the world, and his abilities changed because he couldn't see in the dark, but he developed the senses of a mole, and so You can use them to sense danger, and it helps him in his fighting ability, etc. And he's created caverns all over the world to take over the world, and he wants to wreck everything. Like, as soon as I have wrecked every atomic plant, every source of earthly power, my mighty mole creatures will attack and destroy everything that lives above the surface. And of course, Thing doesn't like this, but this giant creature is summoned, and they all have to fight the giant creature. And there's all sorts of different creatures that live underground. Eventually they give way to basically the Moloids, which is one specific type of creature. But anyways, the Fantastic Four escape. They seal off the cavern, and the Mole Man blows up this island and seals himself off from humanity, but of course he'll come back. And that's the end of the first adventure of the Fantastic Four. Pretty cool stuff. The characters and their personalities are already in place, but they'll be developed in future. And what the Fantastic Four are all about in terms of investigating science phenomenon and everything, and it leading to a villain is established here, as well as some of the relationships between the characters. You'll see more bickering between Johnny and the Thing, etc. So I hope you like this journey through time to the first Fantastic Four issue. If you like what you saw, please give a like to this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Lots of great comic book stuff on here. So until next time, take care.